Outside the church, there is no salvation. This is a very simple statement, but just like a scripture text taken out of context, it can easily be misunderstood. Outside the church, there is no salvation. This is a very simple statement, but just like a scripture text taken out of context, it can easily be misunderstood. Outside the church, there is no salvation. This phrase was coined by St. Cyprian of Carthage in the 3rd century. The statement means exactly what it states. There is no salvation outside the Catholic Church. A superficial understanding of this statement would simply mean that only Catholics can be saved, that the merits of Jesus' death and resurrection can only be applied to those who officially are members of his church. However, like taking a scripture text out of context, the quote has been and continues to be misinterpreted by many who do not understand the statement as it fits within the overall context of Catholic theology. The foundation of the statement, outside the church there is no salvation, is the fact that there are boundaries of the church. These boundaries are juridical, spiritual, theological, liturgical, and physical. There are those who are in communion with the Catholic Church by the profession of faith, reception of sacraments, and participation in the life of the church. These people are explicitly in communion with the church. There are also those who have commonalities with the church through valid sacraments and or theology in varying degrees. These commonalities are implicit and imperfect means of expression of the Catholic faith. This understanding is not something new, but has been referred to by the Church throughout its history. One example is how in the early centuries of the Church's existence, the controversial issue of Christians who were baptized outside its juridical structures had to be addressed. Since baptism, by its very definition, means incorporation into the Church, there were those who believed that Christians who formerly belonged to sects outside of the Church would have to be rebaptized or receive a valid baptism because they did not believe that baptism outside of the juridical structure of the Church were valid. On the other side, there were those who believed that the baptisms administered correctly were valid and that there would be no need to go through the ritual again. The Church settled the controversy by affirming that the sacrament of baptism leaves an indelible mark or character on the person's soul, regardless of whether or not the person performing the ritual is in full communion with the Church, as long as the rite was administered correctly. In other words, Christians outside the juridical boundaries of the Church can validly administer the sacrament of baptism. Now the question arises, what makes the sacrament efficacious or valid? Is it the person who administers it? Of course not. It is the grace flowing from the heart of Christ that makes the sacrament valid. So, by recognizing the validity of the sacrament of baptism outside the visible boundaries of the Church is acknowledging that Christ is at work wherever and whenever the sacrament is validly administered. So, does this mean that Christ can be present without the Church? No, it doesn't. St. Ignatius of Antioch stated, Where there is Christ, there is the Catholic Church. He made this statement because he understood that Jesus made the church his spouse, and the two became one as in marriage. Christ's marriage to the church is the ultimate model for the marital bond. So Christ cannot be separated from his church, not because he is dependent on her, but because of the spousal relationship that he chose to have with her, the one he sacrificed himself for. Sacraments cannot be valid without Christ, and the acknowledgement that sacraments can be valid outside the visible boundaries of the church means that the communion of the church transcends its juridical structures whenever and wherever the true faith is believed in and expressed, even if imperfectly. Therefore, there is no salvation without Christ, and where Christ is, there his church will also be. God bless you, and thank you for watching.